Hi everyone, Glenn here again for the Wine and War project. We've seen some other videos here that has explored, some of the veterans issues, some of the musical issues, some of the sort of modern views of the wine industry. Today we are doing a summary of the history itself. Okay, where this stuff comes from. As a composer, I'm really interested in telling these sort of big stories that happen in small towns, okay? And the Warren family that drives this story for this project really is the biggest of stories in one of the smallest of towns. So I have local historian Jane Oakes here to help unpack, okay, this the story of the Warren family. Okay, so where do we start with the Warrens?
Well, about 18 years ago, our historical society in York purchased a house. We knew that the man made wine. And once we started doing research into the family, they grew ever more fascinating. I particularly was interested in the genealogy of the family and the winemaking history of the family. Also, historian Gary Cox was associated with the wine research.
Yeah, good.
And we discovered that Samuel Warren, not only being a westward bound pioneer who purchased land and built a log cabin, brought his mother there, started to raise a family there, but also in the late 1820s, he planted what was probably the first vineyard in York. By 1832, he was producing his first vintage of 25 gallons. We don't know what kind of wine at that point. By 1836, he was selling wine commercially. Well, that was fascinating. And so I started diving into the genealogy of the family. And we actually know more about his wife's family, Sarah Flagg, from Conway, Massachusetts. Found out that she and three other sisters had all married men in York, coming up from Conway, Massachusetts. I think there's a quartet coming there.
They are the Flagg sisters. Right?
and learning that his daughter, Fidelia, growing up in a log cabin, had gone to medical school in 1849 as part of the first class of women to go to a co-educational medical school. This is amazing. Son Josiah going off and helping to found the Irondequoit Wine Company up on Irondequoit Bay in Rochester, which was a massively, heavily producing vineyard in the 19th and early 20th century. Son Harlan going off to war, knowing that his father was dying of tuberculosis, but leaving with his father's blessing to go fight for the freedom of men. And then daughter Mary Jane going off to pioneer in the Michigan territory, carrying with her a trunk full of books and a Serafina, a musical instrument that had been left to her by her father. This was a musical family. This was an erudite family. They were involved in broad national themes of abolition, temperance, women's rights, fighting for freedom, and women's medical education. They have been fascinating to study, and I hope you'll find their story as fascinating as we do.
Yeah, and what strikes me about that, okay, especially as I've been talking to our veteran partners in all of this, right, is that if we just take Harlan, okay, out of that pantheon, okay, of the Warrens, right, okay, he's the heir to this family that was involved in high level agriculture, in salt, in abolition, in women's rights. He grows up in this civic farmer family, which is making things happen, not only in his immediate community, but selling outside that community. He then goes and does the ultimate civic thing of signing up as a volunteer, for the 33rd Regiment as a musician, and then survives all of these Civil War battles all the way to Appomattox, and then comes home, right? And to a certain extent, one of the things that strikes me about Harlan, since again we don't have a intimate diary of him that tells us his
No
thoughts,
letters.
every day. No letters. We don't have that stuff, right? But I could only imagine, okay, that he comes from this family that's on the right side of what we would now say is history,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, in terms of abolition and women's rights and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's a veteran. He goes off and fights these wars. He's in the midst of horrible situations, and he comes home, and then he faces this adversity after adversity after adversity with the death of family members and the arrival of the railroad that ultimately destroys the business. I can't help but to think of him as a Job-like character of saying, I grew up, my family did all the right things, I did all the right things. Now I come home, and now I'm just pounded with tragedy and failure and adversity. I think there's a lot for us to be empathetic with for the Harlan character.
Absolutely. And these are broad themes that affect him. Robber barons, the expansion of the railroads
Yes.
into the U.S., broken promises on the part of those railroad robber barons.
Mm-hmm.
We also have the tightening of the government control on the production of liquor and wine.
Yes, of course. Right, of course.
And at one point, Harlan, this man who is honored within the county, he
Mm-hmm.
was consistently elected to be a juror representing York on the county civil cases. He was fined $40 for violating excise law, just for doing what his family had been doing since the late 1820s, growing grapes and making wine and selling wine. And so, it just seems so unfair. So over government burdening the common man, get into that, and big industry burdening the common person. There was talk in one of his obituaries that the DLNW had promised that in return for destroying all of his industries, the cider mill, the winemaking facility, the agricultural tile and brick making facility that he had on the property.
Oh, that was also damaged.
Oh,
right?
yeah, gone,
Okay.
gone.
Okay.
And in return for destroying the family businesses and the family legacies, which he would have handed down to his children,
Okay.
they told him that they would be locating the station for Greggsville on his property, and he could possibly be the station manager. Well, that didn't happen. That rug was yanked out from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have broken promises on the part of industry, which I think is something that people can sympathize with today. You're right. It's a Job-like figure, but his family has ties to all these broad national movements, and it points out the role of the common man, the small farmer, the small businessman, in this panoply of what makes our America today.
Yes. Great. Thank you for this quick overview of the
welcome.
Warren family here.
Quick.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.